Hello makers, this is my third project for the Tim Holtz 2024 Everyday Release. And today's project is made with vignette boxes. So I'm going to make something kind of vintage inspired. I have been purchasing some things from vintage stores that sell on Instagram, and I was inspired by Tim to start adding to my vintage collection. And so I've been doing that, and I want to do something that is kind of inspired by those shops that I've been purchasing from. So many times they will sell on Instagram, and they'll have like a, shop my square type sale, and they will set things up in a really pretty vignette. They'll take a picture of it, and then they will put prices on all the different things in that vignette, and you can purchase them. So I thought, hey, that would maybe be cool to do with vignette boxes. And so this setup may look familiar to you. For Christmas Idea-ology 2023, I did a project like this, but with the large vignette boxes in rectangles. I used 2 large rectangular vignette boxes and 1 large square vignette box. Well, vignette boxes come in several sizes, and so this is the second to largest size of vignette box and vignette square. And I made a winter woodland piece out of it. It wasn't necessarily Christmas, it was with the Christmas Idea-ology, but it was more of a wintry feel, wintry, icy, cold feel. So this one, as I said, I want it to be kind of vintage inspired. So I'm going to be putting some things on the panels and in the boxes, on both sides, the panel and in the boxes. Some of the things I'm going to include are the new small display domes, the mini display domes. So these vintage shops that I purchased from, a lot of them have cloches that they put, baubles and different things in. And so I'm going to be using this for at least one of these in maybe one of my vignette boxes. Also, many of them have things like, they actually have the, old cups from, winner's cups and things like that, as well as different statues and such. And there's one in particular that I've purchased from that puts a lot of things on stands like this. And then they sell them lots and lots of different things on stands. So this will go perfect for that. Then there are some that have these really cool metal things that are aged and rusted, and many of them have been painted white and they're rusty and crackled and that kind of thing. And so I thought I might use this from the Sweethearts adornment and maybe some other types of adornments that I have. I'll be using that kind of thing and aging it. I pulled this typed tag that says, just remember, a beautiful thing is never perfect. I think that is exactly what needs to be on something where you're purchasing old vintage items, because they aren't perfect. And usually that's what most of us love about it, right? It's just the imperfectness of it, maybe where something's really worn or rusty or aged. Now I'm planning to use one of the Salvaged Hearts, and this looks worse for the wear. So just so that you know, the Salvaged Hearts they all come perfectly beautiful in this ivory color, but I have done multiple things to this poor heart. I have covered it with collage medium and collage paper and crackle and paints, multiple different kinds of paints, all kinds of things. So this thing has been through it. And so I soaked it in some alcohol, and I soaked off all the rest of the stuff that I've done to this poor thing. And I am going to probably paint it and do something to it that I will use with some of the items I have out here. Now, I also pulled these, and these are the layers frames. And so these are a little different than last year's layers frames because the insides are different. So you can see this one is circular. So these small square ones are circular. And then we have some medium ones that have ovals, or they have these kind of arches in the middle. And then we have the larger ones that also have the ovals and the arches. So that's, you know, one of the main differences is that difference in the center. And then, you know, just like the others, they have this hanging off. So I'm hoping to use at least one of these today. Now, I am not going to probably do the thing where, you know, they are really exactly alike, because when I shop these squares, these vintage squares on Instagram, they're all each uniquely different, because they have, you know, different things that they're finding when they're outsourcing all the vintage products. So it's not going to be matchy. And so I may only use like one frame on a side and then something else over here or something like that, right? I don't know yet, but I'm just, you know, warning you that that may be the case. Now, I always like to cover the outside of my boxes, and it's really important when you're doing something like this where you've pieced some things together. So with this one, I have pieced 2 of the second to largest boxes with one of the middle square vignette boxes. I put Collage medium on the sides here, and then I just press them together and let that dry. And that's how I got this structure, okay? So really, technically, you could probably get 3 of these structures in 3 different sizes if you bought 2 boxes or 2 packs of the rectangular vignette boxes and 1 pack of the square vignette boxes. If you used all the different sizes to make these, you would have a large one, you would have the medium one like this, and then you would have one smaller one, okay? Now, last but not least, one of the things that kicked me off on my purchasing vintage things was not only just watching Tim purchase from the vintage stores online, but also that I came into a huge kind of inheritance of postage stamps and old vintage postage stamps. And I have to tell you, I absolutely love this sticker book from Tim and Idea-ology. So it is just gorgeous with all these colors of, these are actual postage stamps from countries all over the world in all kinds of colors. Aren't they fabulous? Wow, look at this. I mean, a rainbow of colors that we have. 2 different kinds of greens. We even have aqua, blue. We've got our purple over here. Look at this. It's a rainbow of stamps. Amazing. Yellow, orange, red, pink. We've got blue and black. And they're actual postage stamps with actual postmarks on them. Isn't that so cool? I think the artwork on stamps is amazing. I could just look at them all day. I didn't have any idea until last year when I got a big inheritance of postage stamps, just how beautiful the artwork can be on some of these and how intricate some of them can be. And then just how really cool some of them are with just the numbers and things like that. It's just, I think they're just amazing, right? So anyway, oh, look at this one with the elephants. Seriously, I could just sit and look and stare at all of these amazing, amazing stamps in the United States with the airmail. I love that. This one from Italy that says espresso, right? I mean, seriously, are you kidding me? These are real. So, all that to say, I want to use these, and I want to use them on everything, and I can't use them on everything. So I want to give them kind of some prominence, and I am going to be doing on this panel, I have planned to do some postage themed stuff on this panel, and then all around the edge, I want to use in all the colors stamps to cover the whole outside edge of this, because I think that will just be beautiful. And since this can sit on a counter, or it can sit somewhere where you can see both of it, you know, or a coffee table or something like this, you'll be able to see all of those gorgeous stamps. Won't that be wonderful? So I'm super excited about that. So that's probably where I'm going to start with this. So I've rambled on long enough. I think that I am going to cover this. And so that's where I'll start. So I'm inviting you to come along and let's get making. I made my paper choices, and they all came from my favorite neutrals pack, which is the volume 4 backdrops paper. And so it is all neutrals in this. So I pulled this one piece because it said carte postale, and I thought that would go really well with the postage stamps. And I also have some ephemera in mind for it. So that's going to go here on this panel that is the back of the square, and also the sides of these two boxes for either inside the boxes or on the back panels here. Maybe both, but I think definitely for inside the boxes, I'm going to use this one. I love this old textured aged linen piece. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it, love it, love it. Okay. Then I pulled this one for the outside edge because for whatever reason to me, it feels very postally. And so I think I'm going to use this one, and I think they go well on it, just to cover all the outside edge. So I'm going to cut all the strips and get ready to put them on here. And then I am going to, that'll give me a background so that if there's anything that shows through, the wood will be covered, and then I'm going to put my different stamps all across there. Okay, cover that way. So those are my papers I'm using currently at this point. Just thought I'd point that out so that when you see me covering things, you'll know where they came from. Backdrops, volume 4. I began by measuring the space that I needed to cover, and then I wanted to make sure that I would get the words carte postale centered on that back of the square box. So I measured and then cut and measured and cut to make sure that it would fit. And when I got just the right size, I went ahead and put a nice layer of distressed collage medium on the back of the box, and I attached the paper, pushed it down, wiped off any excess collage medium, and then I started to cover the inside of the boxes when I realized I shouldn't do that. And so I went ahead and took that piece of paper out after I put it in, and I covered the back side of the boxes on the other side. So this paper I also got from the volume 4 backdrops, and I cut it so that the darker kind of stained areas would be on the outside bottom corners of each of the boxes. And then I went ahead and attached those, let it dry, and then what you don't see is that in between I sanded the edges with a sanding block, and then I attached the paper to the insides of the boxes. So it's really important that you go ahead and sand in between, otherwise the papers won't line up well. So I cut 2 pieces of this linen paper that I'm putting on the insides of the boxes so that they would match. And so that meant that I needed to get a second piece of that paper out of the volume 4 backdrops. And here I'm explaining that it's really important to sand in between the steps, or your paper won't line up right and it'll kind of buckle a little bit. So that's really important to do. So I did that on all of them, and let it dry. And you do need to let it dry before you do the sanding. So sometimes covering the boxes can take quite a while. And that was the case with this one. But now they're all covered, and I am ready to go and start adding things on top. Now, speaking of top, I need to cover the outside of the boxes. So I have trimmed that piece of paper that I showed you earlier down to fit just exactly around the outsides of the boxes, the top, both sides, and the bottom. And I'm just attaching those with some Scotch tape. That's because it's going to be on the bottom. Nobody's going to see it. I just need this to be one long strip because I'm going to be attaching the postmarked stickers to it. And I want to be able to sew on it and then put it all on as one piece. So that's why I'm attaching these. And then I'm going to check and make sure that it fits all the way around. And it took 4 strips to make it all the way around. And then I had a little excess that I trimmed off at the end. Once I was positive that it would fit around the outside edge, I found the center of the top, and then I decided I was going to kind of start just adhering these postage stamp stickers to the paper that is going to go on the top. And then I would work my way around on the sides. So you can see that I'm not putting them straight, and I have some parts that are hanging off the sides. I'm going to go through and trim those off in a few minutes, and I'll show you what I do with the excess of the ones that hang off. So I don't want it to go to waste, but you can see how there are some little gaps where a lot of the paper shows through, and I didn't want big gaps. Little gaps were fine, which is why I picked the paper that I picked. But this made sure that I didn't waste any of these wonderful postage stamp stickers, and it also fills in any little spaces that I felt were a little bit too big. So I just continued to do this on the top and both sides. I left the bottom blank. All right, I finished the sides, the top, and the bottom with all the stickers. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just do a quick stitch on the edges, and then I will be able to attach it to the box, and then I can distress it with distress crayons and things like that. So I think it's looking great. Love it. All right, I have it sewn on each side, and now I want to adhere it to the boxes. So to make this a little bit easier for me, I scored it where it was going to go around the corners, on the sides, the top, and then on the bottom, so that as I was attaching it, like you can see here, it would attach a little bit easier because I had scored it ahead of time. It still took me a lot of work to keep pushing it down and using my bone folder and pressing it down and making sure that it would stay, but it was easier to score first. So you can see it just takes a little bit of patience. You have to put that collage medium on there and then just keep pressing it on as the collage medium dries, making sure it's nice and flat, there are no air bubbles, and that it's not going to keep popping up. And if it does pop up, just add a little bit more of the collage medium, wipe down any excess, press it, and keep going. Really trying to keep you up to date with the different steps. So I have the outside covered now, and it is all attached. I haven't sanded it yet. I'm waiting for it to completely dry. I just popped these on so that I can see what I think. So I wanted this center thing to be kind of also dedicated to postage. And so with all of the stamps around here, I kind of thought this would just be a fun place to just display some things. So these are all letters that various different letters and things that you can find in the palette ephemera pack that was released in 2023. So you can kind of see, I just popped a little collage medium on there so I could kind of hold them in place. Let me show you what I did to each one of them. Some of it I didn't really do much to, but this yellow one, I added a tiny bit of the Cello tape. Let me show it to you. So it is the cellophane tape stickers that look like cellophane tape. I love this stuff, and I am controlling myself because I want to stick it on everything. So I just stuck a little bit there and then inked around this one. And then the next one that goes down is this green one. Now this did not have a stamp on it, and I wanted stamps on all of them. These stamps are too big for these little things. So I went through the same palette ephemera pack, and I found some different stamps. So you can see there are stamps in here. And I found one that had 2 purple stamps. I just cut it out. And then for these, what I did to make them so that they were like thin enough stamps, because some of these already had stamps on them and this one was missing. So this paper cardstock that the ephemera is made of is a little thick, and so I wanted these not to stand out so much. See the difference in thickness? So to make it thinner, I just, and again, excuse all the mess of my nails and everything, I have collage medium and paint and ink and whatever everywhere. But you want to get your nail in there and you want to kind of separate it and then pull that top layer off like that. Okay, so now I have a thin piece that's like a postage stamp, and you can ink it and kind of crinkle it a little if you want, make it look worn, and it's much thinner than it was. So that's what I did to each of the stamps that I added, and I only added a few, but this was one that I added, and then I added another piece of tape because I could. So this one's going to go about right here. So we still see some of the stamping. We still see this and we still see that. And then kind of in just a little bit from the edge. Next, I'm going to put this one. So this one already had a stamp, but I cut this out of a piece of ephemera that's pink. And, oh, I don't know where the other one is. I have two sets of this ephemera pack because I absolutely love it. But it was pink like this, and it has a red stamp on it. And I don't remember what exactly it is. But anyway, I just cut the little red stamp out, did the same thing, peeled it back, stuck it on there. So that one's going to just kind of go like that. This piece, I'm not really sure what this is, but it says correspondence, has a stamp there, has a postage, and it looks like this is an address. So I am just kind of popping this one like that. So it's kind of sticking up. And then this blue one didn't have a stamp on it, but it's really interesting because it has what looks like a piece of cellophane tape, but it's very light. So I actually took one of the cellophane stickers and stuck it directly over where that colored portion is on this paper. And I think it looks cool. And then here's another one of the stamps that I peeled off, and I stuck that on there. So this one's going to kind of go here. And then this last one is the Santa Rita Hotel. It already has stamps and everything on it. All you have to do is ink around it. And this one's going to go like that. And so I'm just going to kind of stick those there. I haven't decided if I'm going to put anything on them. I might put a paper doll on them. But at this point, I just want to have all these letters and everything to just look at. I just like looking sometimes at this stuff without having too much on it. On this side, I think I have decided I'm going to use this frame here. And then I'm going to do something to the heart. So that's going to go there. And I'm going to keep it fairly simple. And then I will probably put something under the heart, a saying, sentiment, something. But I'm really going to keep this simple over here. And then over here, I'm going to put a light because I'm going to light up each of the boxes so I can see all my stuff like I did for the one with the woodland winter woodland box like this. So I need to hide the battery pack over here. And last time I did like a whole thick thing with foam tape and all of that. This time I'm doing something different. So I found this. This one's either in the palette ephemera pack or the memoir ephemera pack. And I can't quite remember which one. I'm feeling like it was in the memoir ephemera pack. So I trimmed it down just a little bit so it would fit on here. And I'm going to put this one on this side. Because remember I told you I wasn't necessarily going to do the same thing on all the... Because I want it to be like each one is their own thing. So for this, because it says standard postage stamp catalog, how awesome is that? Totally goes with my theme. I'm going to go ahead and take some old book pages and I'm going to build this up with just book pages. And then I'm going to cut out an area to put the battery pack. And so I'll just have this, you know, raised up with the book pages instead. Then I'll cut out from the book pages a space for the battery pack. I'm going to drill a hole and I'm going to start putting the lights in. And if you remember, the lights are always the hardest part with something like this, and you just have to fiddle with it and not get frustrated and know it's going to take some time. Let's talk lighting really quickly. I have some things drying in the background, and so I wanted to show you how I am lighting this, which is pretty much like I did the last time. So I am going to put it on the back here, and the way that I'm covering the battery pack that's going to go here is, you can see that I've drawn where the battery pack's going to go, and then this will just kind of get tucked in there a little bit. And then the light's going to go through this hole. So I want to cover it. And so I have actually put a bunch of just book pages together. And so this will get tucked in here like that. And then covering it will be my stamp catalog. So that'll go on there eventually as the last bit. So first I want to, and then this I can just, you know, pull in and out and turn the lights on and off from here. So this is going to cover my battery pack, and I'll finish that up later. But what I want to do quickly is I want to get my lights through. And so the way that I do that is that I drill the hole, which comes out the top of this, which is the box that's going to light up. And then I drilled a hole here that's going through to up here, and that's going to light up this box. And then I drilled a hole here. Oops. So coming out of here and into this last box. And you don't obviously drill a hole here, and you don't drill a hole over here. So those stay solid. So one more time, battery pack's going to go here. You need to drill a hole for it to go in the back and come into the first box, and then a hole through the side so that you can light up the middle box, and then another hole through the side so you can light up the last box. Now, the way that I get them to stick up there is that I wrap them around something. This can be a little stir stick for coffee. It can be all kinds of things. I just have a couple of pieces of chipboard laying around, so I'm going to wrap it around chipboard. So here's how I'll do this. I'm going to thread the lights through the back, and then there are 20 lights, so divided by 3, I'm going to do 6, and 6 is 12, and then 8 in the center here, okay? So I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to start wrapping around it. And the first one is in the very back, so that'll be 1, and then 2, and I'm going to try and push that down here, and I like to try and keep them on one side. So I'll go 3 and 4, 5. So that will stick in there. And then 6 right there. And now I can thread this through the hole. And I will wrap 8 around the one that's going to go in this side. So thread it through. Make sure that number 6 will stay there. Okay. And then I will probably trim that so that it fits a little better, but that's how that goes. I think I used the wrong one. I think I used the one that was going to go in here, so that's okay. All right, so then I want 8 here. So I'm going to start to wrap this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, sorry for the interruption. My husband just got called into work in the middle of the night. So, all right. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, This one is 4. I continued to wrap the lights around the piece of chipboard. And the reason it's taking so long is because as I wrap, I'm trying to make sure that all the bulbs are on the side that will be facing down and all the wire is on the side that will be facing the top of the boxes so that I can attach it with hot glue and it won't melt any of the bulbs, and also so that the bulbs will all be shining down. And there we go. We've got our lights on all sides. Now I'm adding some hot glue to the side of the chipboard that just has the wire on it, and you can see that the light bulbs are still aiming down on all the boxes. And so I attach the lights in all 3 boxes, and now I'm going to cover them. I showed you earlier how I had put together a bunch of book pages and I had carved out a section that I then drew on here so that I would know where the battery pack and this was going to go, so that I would know where to do the holes and all of that. So now I want to attach it to the back of this box. And so the postage stamp piece of ephemera, or this is actually from a layers pack, I went ahead and put a piece of chipboard behind it to give it a little bit of stability, and then I attached the book pages, and they are going to go on here. And so I will attach it on here, and then that's going to give me that little inside area there. And so I will most likely, once it's all secured down, then I can push this in there like that, and then it's hidden and I can still turn it on and off, and I can pull it out and replace the batteries when I need to. Okay, so that's how I'm hiding the battery pack at this time. And as with everything, I'm adding a bit of collage medium to it and then pressing it down into place. Old books are definitely vintage. And so there are all these wonderful old book covers that you can find in the Memoir Ephemera pack. And what I do is take them out of the pack and then I fold them along where it looks like the binding folds on the what was the actual book. And so I do that by hand, just like you're seeing. And then that tells me 2 things. It tells me how wide the book is going to be, and it tells me how thick the binding is. So you can see that they're different. They're different widths, and the bindings are different thicknesses. Now, as you can see, I have some bits of old books. Now, these are not classics. This is just an old book that I didn't feel bad cutting up. And so I pulled pages out and I am trimming them down to the size of each of the separate book covers. And so this one, I cut one piece to fit inside the book cover, just a tiny bit smaller than the cover. And then I cut a bunch of pages the same width and height, and then I put glue along the spine edge, and I use my finger. I know I'm working off camera here, but I'm pushing the glue in between as many pages as I can. Then I put plenty along the spine, and I push it down against the spine and into the glue and wipe off any that kind of squirts out. And then I just try and make sure all the pages are lined up, they're all in contact with that spine, and then set it aside to dry. And then I do the same thing with the others, cut the pages to make sure they fit just inside the cover, glue along the spine, work it in with my finger so I know that all the pages have some glue on them. And then I go ahead and put a nice amount all down the spine, and go ahead, wipe off any excess that squirts out, and then make sure that they're all fitting within that cover, and you're done. While the book's dry, I wanted to make a little kind of a wall hanging that was reminiscent of some I had seen in some of the vintage squares that I purchased from. So I took a deco frame and I put some distress collage medium along the back. And I had previously cut a piece of chipboard that would fit right behind it. So I glued it to the chipboard. And then I glued one of the new Sweetheart Adornments, the flowered piece. I glued that right into the middle. And then I did several layers on this. So once it all dried, I painted it all white. I put grit paste and foundry wax and all kinds of things on it. So that's going to go through quite a few things. I'll show it to you later on in the tutorial. Now I'm mixing some tattered rose and some aged mahogany to try and get a color that matches that frame. And this is that poor heart I showed you earlier that's been through so much. I painted it white with the white picket fence distress paint, and now I'm painting it with that. Let it dry. And now I'm tearing up that postage piece from the Serendipity collage paper. And I'm just going to be putting some of those pieces on it, some of the stamps and the postmarks and things like that. And as you can see, it actually, these salvaged pieces, they collage beautifully. The collage paper works really well on the salvaged pieces. It goes into the little nooks and crannies. It's not thick, so it doesn't build up on the back or in any of the crevices or anything like that. It goes on so fast and so smooth. It really is kind of addicting, honestly, to cover things in the collage paper like this. So I just made sure that I had all the little bits and pieces covered that I wanted, and then I let it dry. Now, once it was dry, I went over it with a scorched timber distress crayon. This can be any brown, but I wanted to age it a little bit. Lastly, I wanted to put a little bit of alcohol ink on some of the metal pieces that I'm going to be using. So you can see that I've already gone over them with distress picket fence to make the letters stand out. And now I'm just going over them with mushroom alcohol ink. As usual, I got caught up in the making process and got quite a few things done, but I need to catch you up. I didn't videotape myself doing all of this. That happens when I get, caught up making. But I did get the stamp catalog booklet that I made attached, and I can easily fit the battery pack in now so that I can turn it on and off, and then I can change the batteries as needed. On the front here, I added 3 of the stamp stickers. I added a label quote chip and then one of the metal label frames. For this, I just cut some chipboard and then I added one of the paper strips, the new paper strips. There are 3 sizes and this is the medium size. I did the same thing on the back and just added one, and those are to cover up the lights so that when you turn them on, the bulbs don't shine in your face. So that's how I covered those up this time. Super simple. I covered up this area with a little bit of the collage tape from, I think it's still current, but it's just collage tape and it's in the 1/4 inch size. And so I covered up the raw edge with that. And the heart, I painted pink. You saw the collage paper that I put on there, and then the stuck the lost and found on. So I covered it with white paint and then went over it with a little bit of grit paste and some scorched timber and then attached that on. This one I also went over with some distress paint, and then I added the little hardware heads, and I think that's what they're called, screw heads. All right, then on the back, again, I went around the raw edges with the tape, and then I am ready to start building in here. So this one, I want these to be, as I said before, these are kind of vintage inspired. It's just things from the past that someone might be selling in their vintage shop. And I know that oftentimes people sell postage stamps and love letters and old photos of things. So I used one of the new adornments. I put it on a piece of chipboard and inside one of the deco frames. And then once it was dry, I put some grit paste on there and then painted over it with white paint, let that dry. And then I took some of the gold foundry wax, the gilded, and just went over all of the raised areas with some gold of the gilded foundry wax. heated that and then went over it with a little bit of scorched timber and a water brush. So to do that, usually I will take and I'll just do a little scribble. And I do this to age all kinds of things, and then just pick it up a little bit, and then you just put some on there and just kind of wipe it in and around. And that's how you add a little bit of age to some things, okay? So that's going to go here. Just above that, I have one of my favorite underrated pieces from Idea-ology, and that is the silverware. So I took a spoon and I tied a little bit of string around it that I have colored. And this is one of the snippets from the Snippets Curator. And I just took a little square snippet, trimmed it up, and made a little tag out of it. This is number 19, tied that on there. I've already gone over it with white picket fence, and then I aged it again a little bit with just some of the scorched timber. And so that's going to go at the top up here like that. And then underneath, I've made a whole bunch of books. And so I'm going to be adding books like this, kind of. It's not going to be exactly like this, but you'll get the idea. And then 3 over here, underneath a little picture. And I want the butterfly to show, so I'm going to do this one this way. And then I wanted the floral to show, so I'm doing it this way. And then on top of the books, I'm adding this piece, which I think is so fun. So I have a rub on there, and then I've aged it with scorched timber and tied a little piece of string around there, put some, this is just some green moss, and then I added just one little bit of bouquet in there that I have done with weathered wood. And so this is now going to go on here like that. And so that will be that corner. This corner I'm still working on. So I haven't aged this yet, but I did put, you can see the crackle texture paste on there. So this is going to be aged a little bit. So I will be doing this here and there. And then I always go in and wipe it off. So that's kind of how I do that, because I don't want to leave it completely white. And if some of it cracks off like that, I actually love that. So I usually kind of try, and then I'll, make sure that it doesn't stay in there. But to me, when it cracks off, it's just like what it would do if it really was old crackly paint. It cracks off like that. So I love that. All right, so you can see just kind of aging it a little bit. And then it doesn't take much. And then that will go back here. And I'm just putting it back there as if somebody was selling an old window frame. And that's it. So not doing too much with that. This is drying. So this has some grip paste on it. And then I'm going to attach it to this, which has a postage stamp and a bird. And that's just going to sit up there just as kind of an adornment of some sorts. So this is going to be on here like that. This is from the baseboards junk drawer. And so it says ribbons. I think it's typewriter ribbons. And so that's just going to go in the back there as just a little something. It's not really going to do too much. I just wanted something in the background there. And then I took one of the new mini domes and I colored the cork with picket fence distress paint. And then I put one of the new paper strips around it, the 1/4-inch paper strips. And this is just a piece of ephemera. I'm not sure which one. It's from one of the ephemera packets. That's all I remember. I took a whole bunch of hitch fasteners, and some of the silver, well, the silver ones I painted with white picket fence, and then some of the brass ones, I also rubbed some picket fence on those. I left the copper ones just as they are, and I left the little screw bottoms in them, and then I just filled this with those because I thought that was fun. So that's going to go here. I'm going to use the little dog without the stand, And so I haven't decided how I'm going to age him yet, but he's going to go there. And then over here in the corner, I have taken one of the small vials and I have painted it with picket fence. And then I used one of the curator snippets and I put that on the front. And again, I aged it just the same. I just added some of this and let it kind of run down to make it look like it had been kind of out in the elements. This is the cork that I stuck in there and painted. And then this is the other half of an arrow that I used on one of my other makes. And so this is the end of the arrow. So I just kind of stuck it in there because one of the vintage places that I follow, they actually use arrow things like this. So I'm going to show you a picture from their Instagram that was my inspiration. So I don't know if you can see how they have it in kind of a crock, and then they have the metal end, and so that was my inspiration for that. So I've used inspiration from Instagram pictures all throughout this as I've been making. So this is just gonna go here. That's not quite dry yet, but this is gonna go here, and then the little dog for that side. All right, so hopefully that brings you up to date quickly. I'm going to finish, get this stuff all stuck in there, and then I will do the other side because I haven't completely decided what's going on the other side either. Please excuse all the mess, but I wanted to update you with everything else that I have done up to this point. So the center portion, I put a layer from one of the various layer packs that's still current. It says Carte Postale. It's a postage postcard, and then it's a letter that has a kind of a red seal on it, and so I stuck that behind the postcard. And then I used one of the snapshots with the frame, and the frames look like this. They're metallic, and so I put some grit paste on it, and then I put some gilded foundry wax on there. And I just took some paper from the various backdrops and cut it, folded it in half, and then I made sure that it was the same size as these little letters that were from one of the ephemera packs. I'll put links to everything that I used below in this video, as well as on my blog, so that you will know the different packets I used. And then after I just folded the papers over, I inked them, and then I tied them together with a little string. And this one, I added one of the new adornments on the front there. This one I did the same way, so I just folded some of the backdrops, put it behind this letter from one of the ephemera packs, and then tied it together with string. So this is going to go here. And then I took a large vial and painted it white, put a label on it from the curator snippets, and cut a little tag from one of the curator snippets, put a little number tag on there, added some moss and some of the bouquet. And the bouquet is very easy to do. You just take one or two. This happens to be 3 of these little sections, and so I took 3 of these sections and just sprayed it with some Tattered Rose Distress spray stain and dried it. And then I hot glue gunned it into the top and added a little bit of some moss around the top. And then, as I showed you earlier, I just aged this by putting a little bit of Scorched Timber Distress crayon on there and letting it dry. And so then this is just going to go here, and that section will be finished as well. All right, so once it's all dried and put together, I'll come back, I'll wash my hands, and we'll talk about all the details. Let's go ahead and take a few minutes to go over the finished product. All right, so taking a breath and starting here. If you remember, here is our battery pack to turn the lights on and off. I just used book pages to pop this up, and it actually ended up being kind of like an accordion, so it kind of stretches out some as we're putting the battery pack in. and that all works out fine. It gives it some dimension. And this was taken from an old book cover that was the standard postage stamp catalog from, I think this was 1908. I covered up the date by putting a couple of the stamps from the postage or postmark stamp pack, and then the quote chip with the frame. In the center box, and remember this was the second to largest square vignette box, I put those letters, so I got those stuck in there. Love the little tied string around them so that they look like a pack. And remember, behind them is just some folded backdrops paper. And then I went ahead and added from the Sweethearts Adornment that little bird charm that's on there. This is one of the older Adornments charms with the number 2, and I made a bunch of little tags that I stuck on things just from the Snippets Curator, and just tied it onto a little bit of string. This is also Snippets Curator, and then I just attached 3 little bouquet clumps, I guess, of flowers together with the tattered rose. I've got some layers from some of the various layers packets in the back. I've got my frame here. I did color this with some distress watercolor pencils, and I just thought it looked like he had taken this picture when he was on vacation somewhere, maybe near the coast with where people were camping and fishing and things like that. So that's why I went ahead and used that. And then, hello, Leota. And then this is one of the new collage frames with the interesting cutouts. So there were oval and then this arch shape instead of just the rectangular cutouts. Got one of the new tags. This is one of the new token tags. And so it says, just a reminder, a beautiful thing is never perfect. And so I thought that went really well with my vintage theme here. And then I used one of the older tokens that said lost and found, because I felt like that fit a little bit better than the other sayings with the round. New token tags were a little bit they didn't quite fit the theme, so this one fit the theme perfectly. I did use some screw heads, some of the new screw heads on there, and let's see, anything else? Oh, this is one of the new paper strips up there that is covering up my lights, and then I have a little bit of tape up in there that you can see, some of that new Cello tape. I just love that Cello tape. So there we have that. This is one of the larger vials that is still in the line. So this is the one side, and then the outside edge. Remember, I started off with just taking all of those amazing stamps, putting them on some paper strips that were the same width as my vignette boxes, and then just collaging all of those wonderful stamps on there, adding that little bit of stitched detail, and then I'm attaching them to the outside edge. Remember, I did not do the bottom. I just left the paper as it was at the bottom. And then let's go ahead and turn it around to the back side. So I used the back of that square box, and it's a little bit wider because I incorporated the lips of the 2 side vignette boxes in this, and I added that carte postale across the top there, and then I layered all of those postage bits that were from different ephemera packs and things like that that I collected out. And remember, I added some of the stamps on there. Some of them were already on there, and then I added some of that amazing cello tape. So I tucked in a few of the snapshots, and here I used some clippings that say "My Sweetheart, a record of the past, fragments of the soul from the heart." And I thought that kind of went well with all of these letters, because I kind of wanted this to be like these two are maybe writing each other, having been away to different places, and so they were keeping in touch. Then I have some more of the new paper strips here. And then in this one, I added one of my favorite, the spoons from the Adornments silverware. Absolutely love the silverware line. I added another one of those little clippings tags that I made and tied it with some string. And I had so much fun making this kind of piece from the new Sweetheart Adornments. So that's the floral piece. I just put it in a deco frame on a piece of chipboard and just added layers and layers. I had so much fun making that with all the different layers of paint and then grit paste and then foundry wax and then distress crayon and just building up all of that age on there. Then as we go over, I have the figure stands, and this time in the release we had this wonderful cup. And in a lot of the online vintage shops that I follow, they have some of these and they put all kinds of different things in them. And so this time I just thought I'd continue with the theme of the bouquet. And so I just went ahead and put one little grouping of the bouquet flowers in there, and these are colored with weathered wood. I have some rub-ons on there. Did some of the tiny books from the, I think it's memoir, if I remember correctly, Ephemera pack. It's one of the more recent ones, and that's still available. And then to fill in a little bit of space, I did add a couple of small of the Snippets Curator down there. And again, I just used the old books and trimmed them. So I left that in with the, I showed you how to do that here in the video. And so I will be sure to leave that in. And then as I'm working my way down here, we had some of the new mini domes, and I was kind of looking at what some of the groups that I follow were filling the domes with, and some of them had doorknobs, old doorknobs that they had filled in. And so I just took some hitch fasteners. I thought they looked the closest to doorknobs that were in the line, and I painted some of them and roughed them up. And I kind of was taking some inspiration from this picture from South Porch on Instagram, and they used some old doorknobs and put them on little stands, little figurine stands and things like that. And so I thought, okay, I'll kind of make them look rustic like that, and then I will put them in a dome like I had seen on one of the others. And then also I showed you earlier that in that same one, South Porch had an old crock, and they had put the end of an arrow in it. And so I tried to do the same here with mine. Then I just had this little figurine of the dog. I did not use the stand. This was a typewriter chipboard from the junk drawer baseboards. And then this is one of the new Optic lenses. And I just went ahead and I just picked one of the old collage squares, the collage tiles, and stuck that behind there with a little bit, I don't know if you can see there, it's shining a little bit. I just put a little bit of mica tile over it. And then again, I made another little tag out of the Snippets Curator. This one I also put a lot of layers on. So this one has the, what's the coppery, what's the name of that one? Mind foundry wax, grit paste, paint, and again, distressed crayon on that one. I put a lot of crackle on this old wooden this wooden baseboard window, and then I added some distressed crayon to that as well. This is one of the new paper strips that's around here at the bottom, and then a snippet from the Ephemera pack. This is a snippet from the Curator and from Curator, and also from Snippets Curator. So this one also was inspired by some of the things that I've seen from South Porch. So if you look here, you can kind of see some of the things with just old things in them that they have, that they sell. And so I took inspiration from that for that one. And then they often use old books for stacking, for putting things on. And so that's where I got the idea for this. So anyway, just, you can see I've taken a lot of inspiration from following the South Porch Antiques, and I just had so much fun making this piece and just getting lost in it. So thank you so much for following along with me as I made this. And I hope that this tutorial didn't end up being too long for you. But that's always the hard thing when I am doing a tutorial on ideology, because they're either too long or I don't, I forget to turn it on while I'm working, and then it ends up being me just telling you what I did. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for following along with me for this tutorial. If I missed anything, which I'm sure I did, please ask me in the comments for this video. I'll be happy to answer. And I will also have in the description for this video a list of the products that I used for this. I used a lot of things, so I have a limited amount of space. If I don't get them all in with this, please go to my blog that is in the description. The link is in the description, and I will have the complete list of everything that I used if it's still available. And I'm positive that this is all still available. So thank you. I really I just don't know if you understand how much I appreciate that you watch my videos, and that you comment, that you like them and everything like that. It means so much to me. So really, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I want to wish you a very creative day.